afternoon to all. Excellency Minister Adjumani, Minister of State, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of Ivory Coast, Minister Jean-Luc Assis, Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Ivory Coast. Thank you for joining us. My dear friend Andrea Meza Murillo, Deputy UNCCD, Mr. Nurettin Taz, General Director of Combat Certification in Turkey, Mrs. Erin Tombinson, Councillor, Agriculture, Water, Environment and the Department of Agriculture from Australia. Welcome to all to this launch of the State of the World's Land and Water Resources for Food and Agriculture, Systems at Breaking Point. This is FAO flagship report that comes after the first edition in 2011. You can see it has been long, we have the last edition, but we decided to provide more frequent updates in the future. Together with economic growth, rapid urbanization and population growth, the demand for agri-food products, food, fiber, feed and biofuels will continue to grow, increasing unprecedented pressure on the world's soil, land and water resources. Compared to 2012, we will have to produce 50% more agri-food products by 2050. Degraded and polluted soils, land and water systems threaten our food security, nutrition, human and planetary health. Human-induced soil degradation affects 34% or over 1.6 billion hectares of agricultural land. Water scarcity jeopardizes global food security, threatens 3.2 billion people living in agriculture areas. As concluded in this report, current patterns of agriculture are not sustainable, and the pressure on land and water ecosystem are intense. Many are stressed at the critical point. Yet, as shown in our report, agriculture can play a major role and contribute positively to climate, health and development goals. Dear friends, the solutions are in our hands and we have solutions. By caring for neglected soils, addressing drought and coping with water scarcity through tailored sustainable management efforts, including ecosystem restoration, our agri-food system can ensure healthy soils, productive lands and clean water for all, and sustain livelihoods, significantly contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, healthy soils, land and water are the foundations of resilient agri-food system and key to achieving climate mitigation and adaptation targets. For example, wise use of soils alone can potentially sequester 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions by agricultural land. Dear friends, what needs to be done? We need to reform and enforce land and water governance to be more inclusive, adaptive and effective, to benefit hundreds of millions of smallholder farms, women, youth and indigenous people, the true stewards of our ecosystem, and yet the most vulnerable to today's challenge. We also need to strengthen and democratize our information and geospatial systems to provide the basic data, knowledge and science-based solution for digital agriculture, decision-making, and to provide support to farmers for innovation. transforming agri-food system must focus on integrated resource planning that combines soil, lands, water with poverty, food security, climate, and biodiversity targets. This calls for integrated and participatory multi-stakeholder approach, and I think since Monday we'll be all talking that we need to have integrated solutions, meaning farmers and resources managers must work closer with planners to ensure sustainable decision making along with the entire food value and supply chains. But to make this a reality on the ground, we need the investment on landscapes. We need to shift. Agriculture support, investment and subsidies, combined with forward-looking incentives, can be redirected to support social and environmental gains derived from sustainable land and water management. And we have, from some studies, $540 billion on subsidies which can be direct to sustainable agriculture. The state of, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the state of the world's land and water resources for food and agriculture offers a comprehensive update on the status of our planet's soil, land, and water resources, a key reference for decision makers to raise the awareness and leadership on these resources, and an urgent call to action to scale up solutions and mobilize investments. I invite all of you to read, and more than read, to use this important report to convey a sense of urgency to the world that we must adopt agricultural practices that move us from degradation and vulnerability to sustainability and resilience. The United Nations Food System Summit, the COP26 Climate Conference, the 9th World Water Forum in March, last week the 15th World Forestry Congress, this conference and the forthcoming Biodiversity Conference, Ramsar COP14, the Climate COP27, are key global fora to renew priorities, ramp up ambition, and advance the transformation of our agri-food systems. FAO and UNCCD, we are firmly committed to promote the wise use and sustainable management and restoration of our soils, land and water ecosystem for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life for all. Thank you, and I hope you'll have the good use or the best use of the report and its data. Thank you all for joining us again.
Thank you very much, Madam Semedo, for telling us that the resources are at limit, but that there is hope, and that working together we have a chance to reverse that trend. I'm very glad to introduce the high-level representatives to the public and ask them one by one later on to make an opening address. So I'm very pleased to ask Ms. Andrea Mesa Murillo, the Deputy Executive Secretary of UNCCD, to please give us an opening address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and well, good night. Thank you, Maria Elena. Really, I feel that we are strengthening this relationship between FAO and UNCCD, that it is a needed one, and being here together in this lounge, after the launch also, and the event that we had in the morning, it is really what demonstrates that the two organizations were working together, because it's the only way to really address the big challenge that we had ahead in front of us. Excellencies and distinguished members of this panel, as UNCCD, we are delighted and honored to participate in the launch of this full report, that it is released in a timely manner, in a timely and giving timely contribution to the COP that we are here and that we will be discussing, but not only giving this contribution to the COP, but also to the different stakeholders, because we really need science-based information to generate specific solutions to address land degradation and to identify what could be the way in which we can identify the specific technologies to work in the food systems, to transform these food systems and generate specific solutions, not only to guarantee food security, but also, and at the same time, to reduce emissions, to stop biodiversity loss, and also to stop land degradation. And what we are seeing from these reports is that those solutions are there, that we can really do our good landscape management, that we can really improve our food systems, increase productivity, but at the same time transform them and be in a sustainable manner. The reports, and I will say that it's about that. It's about understanding this systemic approach and understanding also the opportunities that land restoration generates in terms of all the jobs that it can generate, and in terms of the economic benefits by investing 2.7 trillion per year in ecosystem restoration, regenerative agriculture, and circular business models. The global economy could create 300 million new jobs and generate over 10 trillion in annual business value over a decade. So it's about understanding that it is not only because we need to do this for sustainable and for environmental issues, but we need to do this because it's good for our economies. This can generate welfare, this can generate jobs, and it's about understanding that this transformation can be achieved, but that we need to work with this whole of a government approach. We need to work with breaking the silos between the different ministries, and it's very encouraging to see here the Ministries of Agriculture and the Ministries of Environment from Côte d'Ivoire, because this is the only way that we can be really achieving these land degradation goals and also restoring and transforming the food systems. So I will just encourage you as well to see the reports. We also, and there were a lot of collaboration between FAO and UNCCD in the elaboration of this report, but also in the elaboration of the JLO2 as well. And this is what it's all about. It's about working together, it's about generating data, and it's about using that data for policy making and to be generating solutions in the different territories. So we're more than glad to be here, and thank you and congratulations for the launch of the full report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mesa Murillo, for indicating also the importance of the interconnected work and the intergovernmental work between the different ministers, and also the importance, the economic importance of land restoration and of producing in a sustainable manner and keeping our natural resources safe. So thank you very much, and I have the honor to invite His Excellency Mr. Konasi Adjumani, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development of Côte d'Ivoire, to address the public. Thank you very much.
Merci. Monsieur le ministre de l'Environnement et du Développement durable de Côte d'Ivoire, Madame la directrice adjointe de la FAO, distingués participants, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous étions tout à l'heure avec la FAO à notre cabinet ministériel pour la signature du document projet mise à l'échelle des innovations transformatrices en matière de système alimentaire, d'utilisation des terres et de restauration à base de cacao en Côte d'Ivoire. Je voudrais à cet effet traduire une fois de plus toute la gratitude de notre pays à la FAO qui ne cesse de multiplier les actions de développement à notre égard pour le bien-être de nos populations. Monsieur le ministre, Mesdames et Messieurs, la lutte contre la dégradation des sols et la sécheresse continue de faire son chemin avec notre pays. Et cette lutte constitue un axe majeur dans le choix des politiques de développement socio-économique de la Côte d'Ivoire. Notre gouvernement est conscient de la nécessité d'intégrer les différentes interventions menées dans une dynamique globale, mais aussi régionale, de lutte contre la dégradation des sols, la sécheresse et la désertification. L'organisation de cette 15e conférence des Nations Unies sur la désertification et la sécheresse honore encore une fois de plus notre pays, la Côte d'Ivoire, qui reçoit toute la communauté scientifique, les organisations non gouvernementales et les décideurs de très haut rang venus de 197 pays pour réfléchir ensemble sur la lutte contre ces fléaux. Il s'agit là en réalité du prolongement d'un engagement constant de la Côte d'Ivoire dans la recherche de solutions contre la dégradation de ces sols. Suivant les orientations du président de la République, Son Excellence M. Alassane Ouattara, mise en œuvre par le gouvernement du Premier ministre Patrick Achi, le ministère de l'Agriculture et du Développement rural, dont j'ai la charge, et les autres ministères avec lesquels nous gérons tous ces dossiers, entendent exploiter toutes les opportunités offertes par cette édition de la COP et les résolutions qui en seront issues pour renforcer sa politique agricole en matière de préservation, de gestion durable des terres et de restauration de l'écosystème forestier. Mesdames et Messieurs, le rapport de synthèse de la FAO sur l'état des ressources mondiales en terre et en eau pour l'alimentation et l'agriculture, intitulé SOLAW 2021, vient à point nommé puisqu'il intervient à un moment où le monde entier s'est donné rendez-vous en Côte d'Ivoire pour rechercher des solutions sur des sujets aussi importants et pertinents pour notre devenir et également que sont les sols, l'agriculture et le climat. Nous espérons que le contenu de ce rapport apportera l'éclairage complémentaire indispensable à tous pour une prise de décision responsable, salutaire pour la santé de notre planète. Aussi faut-il rappeler que la gouvernance inclusive des terres est essentielle pour allouer et gérer les ressources naturelles, faute de quoi les solutions techniques visant à contenir l'impact de la dégradation des terres et la pénurie en eau n'auront guère de chance de réussir. À cet effet, notre gouvernement a fortement investi dans une meilleure gestion du foncier rural à travers la sensibilisation des populations sur les dispositions réglementaires, mais également à travers la mise en place d'un organe opérationnel chargé de leur application, l'Agence foncière rurale. Nous espérons donc que cette COP permettra de mobiliser les financements nécessaires pour la mise à l'échelle de nos politiques foncières afin de garantir la sécurisation des terres pour la pratique d'une agriculture durable. Mesdames et messieurs, permettez-moi à présent de me tourner vers Madame la directrice adjointe de la FAO pour rappeler et saluer la contribution remarquable de son organisation au développement des filières agricoles, forestières et environnementales dans notre pays depuis maintenant 35 ans. Madame la directrice adjointe de la FAO, je vous prie de transmettre au nom du président de la République, son Excellence M. Alassane Ouattara, et du Premier ministre Patrick Jérôme Hachi, chef de gouvernement, nos remerciements les plus appuyés à votre directeur général pour la réactivité et la dextérité dont il a fait preuve dans le traitement des requêtes à lui adressées. Je voudrais aussi vous inviter, Madame la directrice, à être notre ambassadrice auprès de votre illustre organisation pour l'élaboration de projets structurants dans le secteur agricole, dans le secteur forestier et également dans le secteur environnemental pour la mobilisation des ressources nécessaires à leur mise en œuvre. Je voudrais encore une fois vous réitérer nos remerciements et vous dire combien nous sommes heureux, le ministre Assis et moi, heureux de participer à cette séance de travail qui, pour nous, constitue un véritable moment de vous exposer nos problèmes et également de vous dire combien nous sommes engagés dans la lutte contre l'avancée du désert, la lutte également contre la déforestation et contre la sécheresse. Vive le partenariat Côte d'Ivoire-FAO pour la protection de l'environnement et pour la transformation du secteur agricole dans un modèle plus résilient, plus productif et davantage générateur de richesses. Je voudrais vous remercier encore une fois.
Thank you very, very much for your kind words, Honorable Minister. I would now like to call upon His Excellency Mr. Jean-Luc Assis, Minister of Environment of Côte d'Ivoire, for his opening words, please.
Je voulais
Merci.
dire que le ministre d'État, ministre de l'Agriculture, donc, a parlé et il a parlé au nom du gouvernement de Côte d'Ivoire.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and I think that shows also very well that you're working together, and that is a very nice and very good sign. Thank you very much. And I have the honor also to invite Mr. Nureddin Tas, who is the General Director of Combat Desertification of the Ministry of Urbanization, Environment and Climate Change of Turkey. Thank you very much. I know it was a special effort for you to come today. Thank you very much.
Esteemed Executive Secretary, esteemed ministers, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I thank you, host country, Deputy Director General of FAO and Deputy Secretary General of UNCCD. I, Secretary, to greet you all, and I wish this COP15 will be beneficial to our world and to all humanity. Desertification, land degradation, and drought are among the most significant issues of our times. Today, we are gathered here to draw attention to this peril that threatens the future of our world. I convey my sincerest respect and appreciation to all of you who strive and work together for this noble target. Degradation of productive lands, rapid population growth, drought, and climate hazards pose a serious threat to countries' capacities to meet their current and future needs and to ensure food security. There are three basic objects that make our planet livable for living things. These are the atmosphere, water, and soil. Global warming is experienced in the atmosphere, but its effects are on water and soil. It is possible to express its main effect on water as the reduction and pollution of water resources. Desertification obliges all humanity to fight and take measures for the future of our world. It reduces the fertility of the soil, leads to the deterioration of vegetation, causes famine by reduction, food production, creates an environment for migration, conflicts, and wars, reduces the resilience of the land against climate change. The crisis, economic resources, and lives humanity face to face with many other negatives. Dear participants, concluding my words, I would like to remind you once again that we must work together to protect the soil, which is our source of life, with all its richness. I am happy to state that we, as Turkey, are ready for cooperation in the fields of desertification, land degradation, and combating erosion. On this occasion, I greet you with love and affection and wish you a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tas. Turkey has been a long-term partner for FAO in working on desertification and land degradation neutrality or combating land degradation. Thank you very much for your kind words. And I would like now to invite Mrs. Erin Tompkinson, Councillor Agriculture, Water and Environment of the Department of Agriculture from Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vera. Your Excellencies, esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here tonight at the launch of the State of the World's Land and Water Resources for Food and Agriculture, to represent Australia and its contributions to this timely and invaluable resource. There is a twin challenge of satisfying increased demand for food and ensuring the sustainable management of our land, water, and soils. However, they are two sides of the same coin, and both are crucial for ensuring long-term food security. Or put in another way, the acceleration of human activities to meet increasing food demand has resulted in a trade-off between the provisioning and the undervalued non-provisioning services. But sustainable agriculture can turn such trade-offs and perceive competition between food production and preserving the environment into synergies, and provide multiple opportunities, as panelists have mentioned, to meet global agendas like the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. Improving agricultural practice and productivity has so many benefits, as are articulated in the report and by our panelists, contributing to water savings, soil conservation, sustainable land management, conservation of natural resources, and climate change benefits. In Australia, agriculture is undertaken across diverse locations and conditions, where agricultural producers manage significant variability, particularly high climate variability. Improving our knowledge and understanding of the impacts of our actions aimed at improving agricultural land and water use has helped us to achieve economically and environmentally sustainable production in Australia. It's a work in progress, but if you'll indulge me, a few facts to demonstrate this. More than 84% of Australian farmers now use sustainable agricultural practices on farm, such as no-till farming, fencing riparian areas, and destocking land more quickly in times of drought to minimise impacts on the land and faster rebuilding in good times. Such actions have enabled Australia to increase its agricultural production to record levels despite increased climate variability. Australia's lessons learned indicate that it's important to identify emerging risks, how to tackle them, and support all involved to address these challenges. This is where we logically turn to SOLAW. SOLAW 21 is a unique global attempt to synthesize information to pinpoint future risks related to key resources and show pathways to better manage that land, water, and soil. Australian partners, including the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, ACR, and Griffith University, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, have contributed to developing the methodological framework of SOLAW. The DPSIR, or Driver Pressure State Impact Response Framework, used in SOLAW, describes the interlinkages and interdependencies between environmental, socio-economic, and sustainable agricultural production systems following a causal systems approach. The simple structure of DPSIR helps to capture a complicated relationship and assists frame policy responses that can mitigate and adapt to both direct and indirect impacts. The methodology focuses on the regional level DPSIR that provides a quick snapshot of the challenges and identifies potential responses with a priority ranking. Acceleration of SDG implementation requires decision makers to have reliable and timely information and synthesized data. This data feedback also assists with re-evaluation with the aim of continuous improvement. This justifies the need to have a regular, consistent living assessment function of SOLAW through problem and response assessment at global, regional and national levels. Australia is strongly supportive of such a function. As such, Australian partners are collaborating with FAO in designing a living and assessment function of SOLAW, tentatively called SOLAW Live, which will be an FAO-led global initiative on sustainable land and water for agriculture. Such an ambitious initiative is now feasible, given science and observational capabilities have progressed over the last few decades to include near real-time monitoring. Recognising land, water and soil are closely linked to the Earth system's mechanics, local resource management issues and challenges can be placed into a broader perspective. ACR and Griffith University have collaborated with the FAO in designing a comprehensive framework of response assessment to compare technical, institution and policy response to address global land, water and soil degradations. The Philippines is the first pilot country that will co-design and test this framework. This framework is expected to act as a central component of SOLAW Live. We are deeply committed to continuing to support the assessment initiative through advocacy, further research and implementation in SOLAW. On behalf of the Australian contributors who could not be here tonight, and Australia more broadly, thank you for the opportunity to play our part and for the production of SOLAW 21, such a valuable contribution to global efforts to tackle pressing agricultural and environmental challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tompkinson, for sharing experiences from Australia, but also for your contribution to Australia's contribution to the production of the SOLAW, and for your continued support through the SOLAW Life and different other support. Thank you very, very much. I would like to ask Feras, we wanted to show a video before Mr. Li Fengli will introduce to us the SOLAW, or present to us the SOLAW. So give me 1 second, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Firas. And now I have the pleasure to invite our director, Li Feng Li, Director of the Land and Water Division at FAO, to present to us SOLAW 2021.
I hope I could manage this. Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, very good evening to all of you. I hope you enjoyed the very short video. And further to the welcome remark by our Deputy Director General. Okay. Further to the remarks made by our Deputy Director General. In the next 10 minutes, let me share with you a little bit more details along the challenges, risks, but also opportunities and actions need to be taken. In 2012, FAO published the first edition of this State of the World Land and Water Resources for Food and Agriculture, which is called SOLAW 2011. It triggered the alarm that the soils, land, and water systems were at risk. During the last 10 years, lots have happened at the global stage, such as the recognition of the central role of the water in the sustainable development, such as the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development endorsed in 2015, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for disaster risk reduction, and also the NDCs, NARPs, and the LDN in the UNCCD process. The objective of this report is to consolidate all the available data, information, assessment, scenarios to delineate the status of the soil, land, and water resources of the world, to understand the drivers, the pressures, and the risks to them, and also identify opportunities and challenges, develop solutions and actions for the future. The growing demand for food, for agricultural products, place enormous pressure on these resources. As mentioned by our DDG, currently 95% of the food is produced on land, and in 2050, we need to produce 50% of more food, feed, fibers, and biofuels compared to the level in 2012. In 2020, we have between 720 and 811 million people facing the food insecurity, facing the hunger, and around 3.2 billion people were impacted by water scarcity. This table provides an overview of the status of the change of agricultural land in the last decades. So compared to the level in 2000, in 2019, you can see the declining of the permanent meadows and pasture land by 190 million hectares. The cultivated crop land increased a little bit, 63 million, but then total agricultural land decreased by 128 million, and forest land declined 94 million. And overall agricultural land available on the per capita basis declined 22%. So according to this report, all assessments, projections, scenarios point to accelerated trends that the depletion of the soil, land, water resources, and associated loss of the biodiversity weakened ecosystem functions. So this report concludes that the interconnected systems of these resources are stretched to the limit. And this is the global water stress map at the basin level. You can see the water stress is very high in all the basins, especially those with intensive agriculture and big populations, and particularly where the available freshwater resources are scarce due to climate conditions. Our second conclusion on the state is that the current pattern of agriculture intensification are not providing sustainable. The global map shows that human-induced land degradation, simply on this map, the darker in red, the worse. And overall, human-induced degradation affects 1/3 of all the agricultural land. And extending the cultivation into marginal land or increasing the intensification on existing cropland are constrained by soil land suitability, water availability, biodiversity, and space for other purposes. Thirdly, farming systems are polarizing. Large-scale commercial holding dominate agricultural land use, with hundreds of millions of smallholders concentrating on the land that's susceptible to the degradation, water scarcity, and climate change. And the number of the farmers is highly skewed, smallholders is highly skewed to the left, who only occupying above the 12% of the land, with 84% of the farmers smaller than 2 hectares. So our future policies on land management must address this issue to ensure that the continued viability of the smallholder farmers, which is critical for local food security, livelihood, and especially in many low-income countries. Come to the challenges, we have 2 major challenges. Firstly, future agricultural production will depend upon how to managing the risks to land and water. Human-induced land degradation and water scarcity increase the risks level for agricultural production and ecosystem services. And on this map, simply the darker in red, the worse. Climate change adds uncertainty and complexity to the farmers, particularly those who are smallholders, who are less resilient to the shocks and suffer from food insecurity. Our second challenge is to safeguarding land and water resources while meeting the demand for food, feed, fiber, biofuels now and in the future. There's now only a very narrow margin for reversing the trend in resource deterioration and depletion. The complexity and scale of this task should never be underestimated. In the water community, we often say whoever finds the solution to water will win 2 Nobel Prizes, one for peace and one for science. Now we need to find integrated solutions to soil, land, water, climate change, biodiversity, and so on, which is much, much more challenging. The report suggests 4 areas of responses and actions. Firstly, land water governance have to be much more inclusive, adaptive, and effective. It is essential for building capable institutions and effective management mechanisms for allocating and managing such precious natural resources. Second response is to plan and implement integrated solutions at all levels. Any advance in transforming the food systems to meet the future demands will require a systematic planning of the land and water resources as a crucial first step. Thirdly, the technical and managerial innovation can be targeted to address the priorities and accelerating transformation. New technologies, guidelines, and management approaches are available, and we need to be more creative and innovative in the future, especially in using the big data, geoscience, the modern ICT, and AI. Fourthly, agriculture support and investment can be redirected towards social and environmental gains derived from the land water management. Investments are needed to move from infrastructure and production to sustaining the productivity of these rain-fed and irrigated systems through improved governance, integrated interventions at scale, and innovation in management and technologies. Finally, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. A full package of workable solutions is now available to enhance food production and tackle the main threats from land degradation, increasing water scarcity, and declining water quality. But these will succeed only when there's a conducive enabling environment, strong political will, coherent policies, and inclusive governance. That's all I want to present at the moment. Finally, please allow me to take this opportunity to thank over 150 colleagues and experts and over 20 partners who contributed to this report. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Li Fengli, for presenting the findings and recommendations of the SOLA 21. And now I would like to hand over to my colleague Feras Siadat, who will coordinate a panel discussion. And for that, I would like to kindly the high-level panel to move, because we don't have facilities for more microphones. So if you could please move to the first two rows, and then we would ask, please, the panelists to come in front. Sorry for that, but the facilities are like that. Thank you very much. And thanks again for your kind words. English translation and French.
Yes. Mr. Lucas, Mr. Rafla, Atiya. No, this is Nicole.
Okay.
Oleg.
Okay, just okay.
Mr. Oleg. It's okay. It's okay. No, that's it.
We need to conclude. We need to finish at 8 o'clock.
8, yes. Yes. I stand up or I sit? What do
As you
think?
like. I think it
Okay. Okay. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the inspiring words from the distinguished guests that we have. Very encouraging and very inspiring. We heard that there is a sense of urgency in dealing with sustainable land, soil, and water management. We heard that there is a need for integration, there is a need for planning, governance, and several other issues that are important in order to advance the sustainable land, soil, and water management. So we asked distinguished panelists to be with us today in order to reflect and to add from their long experience in managing natural resources, and especially integrated with other important aspects, biodiversity, land degradation, climate change, and others. And we would like to ask our distinguished panelists for some questions and reflection on how do they see SOLAW and how SOLAW could help in advancing management of resources at different levels. So we have today Ms. Rafla Atiya from Tunisia. Ms. Rafla is a Director of Soil Resources, Water Resources and Fisheries at the Ministry of Agriculture in Tunisia. And we would like to ask a question on your country. What are the current status of land, soil, and water management? What are the responses and achievements in your countries? And what are the main gaps in order to enhance sustainable management of land, soil, and water? Ms. Atiya, please.
Thank you, Firas, for introducing me. Thank you for the FAO for invitation. Donc, merci pour l'invitation. Je remercie l'UNCCD pour l'organisation de cet événement. Je remercie aussi le pays hôte de cet événement qui est à Abidjan. Juste pour dire que la Tunisie a bénéficié de plusieurs projets de partenariat et d'échanges avec la FAO. C'était une riche expérience d'échange dans le domaine de la gestion des ressources naturelles. Donc, comme tous les pays de la région du Proche-Orient et de l'Afrique du Nord, particulièrement la Tunisie, subit les principales formes de dégradation du sol et de l'eau relatives à fournir les services écosystémiques qui sont la salinisation, l'érosion hydrique et éolienne, perte du couvercle végétal et du carbone organique du sol, pollution des terres par l'application excessive des engrais, pesticides et urbanisation. Donc, en mettant l'accent sur les principales difficultés techniques du secteur agricole, la FAO, comme d'habitude, appuie la mise en place et le renforcement des capacités pour la gestion durable des ressources naturelles, donc sol et eau, plantes, afin d'atteindre les objectifs de développement durable. Donc, SOLAW fournira à cette occasion un appui aux stratégies, programmes et initiatives gouvernementales nationales existantes. Ce rapport insiste sur l'importance des diagnostics, de l'état des ressources naturelles, sol, eau et plantes, la collecte, capitalisation et harmonisation des informations des différentes utilisations des terres, des indicateurs d'impact et de suivi, des interventions de reboisement, plantation, pratiques agricoles qui traduisent les facteurs d'émission des gaz à effet de serre par écosystème. Informer aussi et prédire des scénarios des impacts des changements d'affectation d'utilisation des terres, renforcement des techniques, programmes d'implémentation des bonnes pratiques, planification, orientation des choix adaptés aux aptitudes de sol. Donc, les aspects à développer par SOLAW, c'est de pousser un peu plus les efforts et encadrer les pays et faciliter la mise en œuvre de programmes et stratégies dans le domaine de gestion des ressources naturelles. Particulièrement, une meilleure coordination intersectorielle institutionnelle, synergie et harmonisation. Donc, aider les pays à mieux définir les mécanismes d'implication des acteurs, c'est ça le problème. Par exemple, pour la Tunisie, on dispose de 4 stratégies. Une stratégie de l'eau, une stratégie des forêts, une stratégie de la conservation des eaux et des sols, une stratégie dans le domaine du ministère de l'Environnement concernant la mise en place de l'INDICI, l'accord de Paris, une stratégie bas carbone. Donc, plusieurs stratégies qui travaillent dans le domaine de ressources naturelles, beaucoup de chevauchements. Donc, il faut une synergie pour la mise en place de ces stratégies. Donc, il faut aider les pays à mieux définir les mécanismes et identifier surtout les acteurs clés à intégrer dans les processus de mise en œuvre des politiques et des programmes. Donc, de nombreux processus participatifs existent déjà, mais leur efficacité est remise en cause vu que l'intervention des intervenants n'est pas parfois bien définie et bien ciblée. Donc, apporter un modèle d'intégration et de collaboration et comment formaliser les processus. Donc, pour la Tunisie aussi, il y a des gaps, absence d'une stratégie claire d'orientation de l'utilisation des sols et des terres selon les aptitudes et potentiels et propriétés fonctionnelles des sols pour une productivité optimale. Et aussi, il y a un manque de système d'information sur les sols national qui devrait être instauré et mis en place. D'ailleurs, un concept note a été préparé dans ce sens et j'espère que cet événement sera une occasion pour lancer ce système d'information qui est très utile pour une meilleure gestion de l'eau et des sols et la gestion des ressources naturelles. Je vous remercie et merci encore, Monsieur Firas, pour m'avoir invité et participé à cet événement très important. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Ms. Atiya. And now, give us some ideas of how the global assessment of SOLAW would also benefit some national activities, mainly on the overall need for integration that Ms. Atiya have just highlighted. Now I would like to move to Mr. Juan Locas Restrepo, the Director General of the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT, and Global Director of Partnership and Advocacy of CGIAR. And we would like here to move to, in your opinion, how could SOLAW support the achievement of land degradation neutrality at a global and national level, knowing that CIAT also contributed to SOLAW by loaning an expert, Mr. Luis Verschu, to work with FAO, and especially on topics related to land degradation, soil and water. And we would like to know how that will also support the countries and your efforts in land degradation neutrality, and also how that will support agricultural research to enhance food security at a global and national level. Thank you.
Thank you for the challenging question. Good evening to all of you, Excellencies. I would like to first acknowledge this important report and congratulate FAO, and also thank you for allowing some of our experts, our scientists, to be part of it and contribute, as you just mentioned, one of the names of our people helping to this, I think, great achievement, because it gives a sense of urgency as well as a sense of direction. So I would not like to cover what the problematics are. I think that's absolutely clear, but look more into the solution space and how to work and support change at the landscapes, at the country, at the local level. And basically, this is one of the strengths of the report. It's a report that does not just document the problem, but indicates and provides some solutions, pathways, or insights. So while solutions exist, the report also makes clear that we're first not deploying them at a fast enough rate, and second, that the uptake and adoption of changes in practices requires enabling conditions. So basically, it's not only about more knowledge and more technologies, but it's also understanding how we generate an enabling environment for that knowledge, those practices, that technology to be deployed. And this is why CGIAR has, as part of its change process, a new research area dedicated to systems transformation that goes beyond the technological solutions and looks at the policy and financial environment that is necessary to promote a change. So it's basically also understanding the political economy in which key actors in food systems are operating and enhancing our work on policy reform, financial instruments, incentive and disincentive structures that affect the ability of landowners to manage their land suitability. And on top of that, of course, we need to respond as we've been doing historically, but now in a much more integrated and aligned fashion, aligned with demand, on a new prospectus, a new set of initiatives that's being launched at the moment, touching more than 50, 60 countries at the moment, where we are learning and co-developing things such as elements related to and tackling land and water degradation, such as nature plus solutions, how we meet food demand of growing populations by stewarding biodiversity, in improving soil and water management through nature positive solutions, or how we learn how to upscale agroecological pathways and innovations for small scale farmers, how we work, and this is something where Lou is heavily involved in terms of mitigations, co-developing emission reductions and carbon removal programs with communities, also understanding what are the required enabling environments, and of course, as we've been doing in the past, accelerating our co-development of climate innovations and enhanced access to technologies and practice for climate resilience at the farming community levels, and also understanding the trade-offs that are so complex across water, energy, food, and ecosystems in selected transboundary large landscapes, river basins, so we can provide tools, guidelines, and also training and facilitation for analysis and research for development. So basically what we're doing is aligning ourselves to meet societal demands, to support countries in their food transformation pathways as they relate to water and land, and also delivering all this knowledge and taking risks in terms of our research with, for, and through our partners as we embed over time better ourselves in an institutional landscape that's absolutely accessory to meeting these outcomes. So that would be it from me for now. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, and that clearly shows in the preparation of SOLAW, where we collaborated with more than 150 colleagues from more than 20 institutions to bring all this need for a package, not only solutions that stand alone. And then to continue the picture, we would like to move to the implementation and to invite Mr. Ulrich Apil, Senior Environmental Specialist at the Global Environmental Facility, where we have a lot of collaboration in land degradation, biodiversity, and climate change, specifically on the sustainable land, soil, and water management. And we would like to ask how SOLAW could support implementation of programs at different scales to enhance land and water management. And this comes from the long-term collaboration with FAO and with partners. How do you see the SOLAW, and also especially that you, Mr. Ulrich, were part of the advisory, the independent advisory committee of SOLAW, and you participated in giving guidance and useful information and advice to develop SOLAW. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much. So first of all, I wanted to congratulate FAO to this landmark report. It is really a top quality report, very thoroughly researched data and important information. And I know that it was really a huge effort for the team to bring this together, and the whole team can be proud today with the final result. And like you said, I really had the honor to be on the advisory committee, and this gave me the benefit to look very thoroughly, read it very carefully, the report. And when I did that, I realized, that this is really very, very useful also for my work at the JEF. And let me share very quickly one news. Maybe you know this already, that we have concluded our JEF 8 replenishment recently successfully. So from the 1st of July this year, a new cycle will be starting. Our donors provided us with a fresh input of 5.2 billion for our programs, and in JEF 8 we will have even more integrated programs, and 11 integrated programs, and 6 of them are related to land and land degradation issues, food systems, forests, restoration. And I wanted to mention this because the report can really serve as a very thorough baseline data for integrated approaches. And also because it does not only present the challenges, and of course there are a lot of challenges presented in the report, but it presents also the responses to risks and actions. I like this chapter a lot about the action areas. I think these action areas almost provide like a guideline for programs and projects, how they can be designed, what needs to be taken into account, the inclusive land and water governance as a basis, and the integrated solutions at scale, the making sure that those investments are sustainable. So I really think that this can be very useful for partner countries that are putting together those integrated projects and programs, and I would encouraging also the agencies and that are helping countries to design those projects and programs to make use of it, also in the context of the transformative land degradation neutrality programs and projects. So I really think that this is very useful. You asked this question in the beginning to us, and I think that this is very, very useful, and wanted to again congratulate the team to this very, very good report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I would like to follow up with the responses in SOLAW, including integrated solutions or packages of technical innovation, governance, policy, planning and investment. And from Jeff's point of view, do you think this kind of package would have a great deal of success, or we are still missing some components to make it more achievable and more close to the implementation on the ground?
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up question. I think that this, I mentioned this already, that I think that will be very useful. And I think that the report should be like a living document. There will be, of course, an update in some years to come. And right now, I don't think that there's missing anything. It needs to be applied, used, and then based on this learning by doing, in the next report, we can see what are the lessons learned and continue to improve and enhance it in the future.
Thank you very much. And now I move to our last guest, Ms. Nicole Harari, from the World Overview of Conservation Approach and Technologies, WOCAT, research scientist, with a long collaboration with FAO, with WOCAT, with land, water, soil, and now, of course, biodiversity, etc., land degradation. So, given your experience on practices on sustainable land and water management practices, what are the role of sustainable land and water management practices in achieving land degradation neutrality and food security? And how do you see the gaps for wide-scale uptake of the practices? What do we need, and how we can collaborate together in order to bring this in scaling out at large scale, benefiting livelihood of communities and environment?
Thank you, Firas, for the question, and thank you for being here. I would also like to congratulate colleagues from FAO to having finalized this product, where we were very lucky to also be partly of the writing and of the review. And I'm also happy to see that a lot of our joint FAO-WOCAT endeavors are in fact reflected in the publication. So congratulations to all of you, and particularly to Firas, of course. So yeah, you asked about the role of good practices in soil and water conservation or sustainable land management in achieving land degradation neutrality and food security. And I would like to start, and I think we are all aware that to reach land degradation neutrality, we need to have a substantial uptake and fostering sustainable land management practices. And I would also like to highlight here that when we look at the LDN response hierarchy that is being discussed also these days, sustainable land management can really contribute to avoid land degradation, to reduce land degradation, and to reverse land degradation, or in the context of the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, to restore degraded land. So SLM is really essential in all these three dimensions of the response hierarchy, and its uptake is essential. When it comes to food security, we were last year looking at the WOCAT data set, which contains over 2,000 good practices from over 130 countries, and we were analyzing what farmers were actually saying, what motivates them to implement sustainable land management practices. And when we look at these very honest answers, the first thing that farmers are actually mentioning is always food security, water security, and nutrition, particularly also for the family and for the children. And I think when it is about fostering uptake, we should very much take into consideration what the farmers first and foremost think is the most important for them as a benefit that is provided when they are implementing sustainable land management. Now, coming to the hindering factors, I think we have heard a lot in these 2 days only about what hinders and what should be tackled. We should focus on gender. We have had the launch of the technical guides to support tenure and land governance today by FAO, and just now in the science policy, with the science policy interface, there was the discussion on integrated landscape management and land use planning. So I will not repeat that. We are all aware, I think, by now, and we will have more opportunities to talk about those topics. What I wanted to tackle quickly here is the issue of knowledge, and we have heard already about the importance of knowledge from the colleague from CIAT Biodiversity. But again, I would like to highlight here that when we are looking at the VOCAT data of these over 2,000 practices, what people are stating as first hindering factor is really finances. So I'm looking at Ulrich here. But then the second mainly stated hindering factor is really knowledge. So how can we better disseminate knowledge? And here I mean dissemination and promotion of evidence and knowledge to farmers, to extension services, to district level decision makers, up to national level decision makers. And here I believe for us that SOLAW can have an enormous impact if we manage to bring down and break down the evidence that was now generated through this report, break that down and really bring that knowledge, bring this evidence to the land users, to the farmers, to the people on the ground who are actually implementing sustainable land management. And having said that, as a global network working with over 50 countries worldwide, what we receive as the highest demand, I would say, in terms of knowledge generation and knowledge sharing is really more investment in South-South collaboration. We often receive the feedback that projects and programs do not take enough into consideration the importance of South-South collaboration, again at different levels, so enabling the sharing of good experiences, of success stories between land users, enabling the sharing between extension staff, between agricultural officers, between also decision makers at different levels. So I would say if for a successful uptake, South-South exchange is key, and we are also very happy that we are initiating a project together with FAO to see how we can actually foster the uptake of sustainable land management through South-South exchange at those different levels. So that's from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicole, and I would like to thank all the panelists for the very useful insight. And we have to say that developing SOLAW with all partners and countries with the support that we have got is really highlighting how we can work together to identify the current status of land, soil, and water resources, what are the challenges, and what are the main responses. That goes at different scales and mostly required collaboration and integration between different sectors. And we are happy that this book came into life after a long time. It came during the pandemic, where there was a challenge in producing the report, but finally we have seen the report, and we would like to have this as a starting point for working together and implementing on the ground the responses that have been generated in SOLAW according to this collaboration. Thank you very much. And now I would like to call Ms. Vera Berger, Senior Land and Water Management, for closing remarks. Thank you very much.
You want to tell a few last words? I can? Okay. As you like. If you want to give some few words, I'm very pleased to give a Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Her Excellencies, distinguished representatives and members of delegations, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a long day but I'm very happy to see you all still here, and I think it was an important event. We are inspired by the knowledge and information which has been provided by our distinguished speakers about SOLAW 21. It is obvious that the pressure on land and water ecosystems is now intense, and many are stressed to a critical point, as was presented by Difeng. Increased land and water productivity is crucial for achieving food security, sustainable production, and SDG targets. The SOLAW 2021 report argues that a sense of urgency needs to prevail over a neglected area of public policy and human welfare, that of caring for the long-term future of land, soil, and water. A meaningful engagement with the key stakeholders, as mentioned by Nicole, farmers, pastoralists, foresters, and smallholders directly involved in marginal lands, soils, and conserving water in agricultural landscape is central. These are nature's stewards and the best agents of change to adapt, and embrace the innovation we need to secure a sustainable and resilient future. Risk awareness is key. Farmers and resource managers need to be much more risk aware and work together with planners in setting their responses and contingency plannings to enhance resilience to risk and emergencies. Climate change, to increase evapotranspiration and alter the quantity and distribution of rainfall, leading to changes in land and crop suitability and greater variations in river runoff and groundwater recharge. Alternative crops and changes in management practices will be needed in some regions where farmers are forced to change their traditional cropping patterns. Planning in a way out of the downward spiral of land degradation and water scarcity offers promise when combined with forward-looking incentives for climate adaptation and mitigation. The SOLAW 2021 report indicates how institutional and technical responses can be packaged to address the challenges of increasing water and food security within land, soil, and water domains, and more widely across agriculture and food systems. It stresses the importance of integrated approaches in managing land and water resources, as was mentioned by several speakers. We learned from SOLAW 21 that there is no one-size-fits-all solution. A full package of workable solutions is now available to enhance food production and tackle the main threats from land degradation and increasing water scarcity. These will succeed only when there is a conducive, enabling environment, strong political will, sound policies, and inclusive governance, and full participatory planning processes across all sectors and landscapes. Let us all work together as a team to guide the change to a more productive and sustainable future of land, soil, and water for the resilient food systems. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thanks a lot. Thank you.